Hey everybody, it's Miss Sullivan talking fractions, decimals and percentage. So just like we talk about all the time, quick little reminder, in different contexts, the same thing can have different names. Let's just pretend these pictures are the same and that I didn't shrink here and that my head isn't getting bigger. Anyway, in the classroom I'm Miss Sullivan, in the staff room I'm Antonia, at home I'm Mum, and in the car, well, that's a nice way of putting it. So just like we've got a half is equivalent to, so just like Miss Sullivan is equivalent to Antonia, is equivalent to Mum, is equivalent to full, a half is equivalent to 1 over 2, which is equivalent to 5 over 10, or 5 tenths, which is equivalent to 5 tenths expressed as a decimal, which is equivalent to 50 over 100, which is equivalent to 50%, which is equivalent to the ratio 1:2. So these are the same thing in different contexts, so we call them different names. Fractions, decimals and percentages, same thing, different contexts. A half is equivalent to 5 tenths. That's in the context of fractions, which is equivalent to the decimal 0.5, which is equivalent to the fraction 50 over 100, which is equivalent to 50%. So what we're looking at now is percentage. So percent literally means of 100. So we're talking about busting things up into 100 little bits. It's like how we think, for me, I think about money. So we bust $1 up into 100 cents. 60 cents is less than $1, and we can express it like that. That's what it looks like as a decimal. And so we know that that's 60 little hundreds, which is 60%. Or I can have 250 cents, but I don't tend to say that. We tend to put it in the decimal form and say I've got $2.50, and that's 250%. So $1 would be 100%. So anything less than $1 is going to be less than 100. Anything more than $1 is going to be over 100. So let's look now at the table of equivalence, because all of these things are equivalent. So let's have a look at what happens with the fraction 1/4. So when we're talking about turning fractions into decimals, we looked at trying to make the bottom work with our denominator here. I can't represent 4 in terms of 10, but I can in terms of 100, because I know that 4 times 25 is 100. So what I'm going to do to the bottom, I'm going to do to the top, 1 times 25. So 1 over 4 is equivalent to 25 over 100. That's mega easy to express as a decimal. 25 hundredths. And as a percent, 25%. Like I said, you can see that's 25 cents, 25%. So this will be easy here, 75.75. We know that's 75 hundredths. It's like 75 cents, 75%. Let's express it as a fraction, 75 over 100. And I know these guys have a common factor, which is 25. So I'm going to divide both by 25. 25 goes into 75 3 times, and it goes into 100 4 times. So 3/4 is the same as 75 over 100 is the same as 0.75 is the same as 75%. Let's get all football coaching on it now and give 110%, which expressed as a decimal becomes 1 and 1/10. So I don't really even need that, do I? I could just write 1.1. Expressed as a fraction, it's 110 over 100. Oh, it's an improper fraction. Just a quick little reminder. Oh no, we won't. We'll make this a mixed number first. I know that also means that it's 110 divided by 100. So I could write that like 110 divided by 100. I could get rid of that. I could get rid of that. 10 goes into 11. Once, remainder 1. So 1 over 10. Happy days? So expressed as an improper fraction, it's 110 hundredths. And expressed as a mixed number, it's 1 and 1/10. Expressed as a decimal, it's 1.1. And expressed as a percent, it's 110%. Just a little bit of a reminder about that. Remember that our proper fractions have a smaller numerator than a denominator, something like 2/3. So if I'm looking at a number line, proper fractions are always going to be less than 1. They're not a whole. So there's 1/3, there would be 2/3 on my number line. Improper fractions have a numerator that's bigger than the denominator, something like 4/3, because 4 is bigger than 3, obviously. Expressed on a number line, there's 0, there's 1, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3. So it's more than 1. So I can express improper fractions as mixed numbers. So I know that because I know it intuitively, but I also know that because 4/3 is the same as saying 4 divided by 3. So 4 divided by 3, 3 goes into 4 once, remainder 1/3. So there it is as a mixed number, there it is as an improper fraction, and obviously they'd be at the same place on the number line. Just a quick little reminder. And when we're working with mixed numbers and it's time to multiply, divide, add or subtract, it's much better to convert them back into improper fractions. Excellent. So now that we've had a look at this and we're fully appreciating that we've got the same thing, just expressed slightly differently, different contexts, fraction, decimal, percent, same thing. Miss Sullivan, Antonia, Mum, that woman. All right. Let's just quickly practice a couple. Fractions to percentage. So, expressing 3/20ths, it's a proper fraction, as a percent, I can already see, much like I did with a quarter, that if I times that by 5, I can express it with a denominator of 100. I can create an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. So if I times that by 5, I can times 3 by 5, and 3 by 5 is 15, which equals 15%. And that's fine when my denominator over here is clearly a factor of 100. But when it's not, it makes it, that's obviously way too difficult to do. You're not just going to know it intuitively like that and then be able to do to the top what you've done to the bottom. So essentially, when you're converting fractions to percentage, you're timesing it by 100. So I can also do it like this. 3/20, and it's time to remember invisible ones, times 100, which is really 100 over 1, equals 300/20, which is the same as saying 20 into 300. I can get rid of these guys. So 2 into 3 goes once, remainder 1, and 2 into 10 goes 5 times. So it's 15%. On the calculator, let's just quickly remember where some of these buttons are. I hope you can see the screen, but I can go 3, and it's this little one here, over 20, and I've got to move it along, times 100 equals 15%. Excellent. Now let's quickly do an example with a mixed number. So we'll just pick a quick mixed number. If it's a mixed number, obviously my percent at the end before I even start, I know it's going to be more than 100. It's going to be some sort of magical football coach percent. So 6 3/5. Let's go with that. Now, because I'm going to be basically multiplying a fraction, it's better to convert that into an improper fraction. It's just going to be easier to deal with. So going back to improper fractions, 5 times 6 is 30. 30 plus 3 is 33. So that's equivalent to 33/5. And I'm going to multiply that by 100 over its little invisible one. And I end up getting 3300/5, which is the same as saying 5 into 3,300. 5 into 3 doesn't work. 5 into 33 goes 6, remainder 3. 5 into 30 goes 6 times. 5 into 0 goes 0 times. So this equals 660%. The team sure is working hard today. Just a little reminder with your calculator again. With mixed numbers, I can go 3, and then this time it's, oh, what did I do that for? I can go 3, and then this time it's shift the same button to create a mixed number. So it wasn't 3, sorry. It was 6 and 3/5. I forgot what my number was. 6 and 3/5 times 100, what do I get? 660%. Excellent. All right. Let's have a look at one where it isn't so obvious, because 20 is obviously a nice little multiple of a nice little factor of 100. 5 is obviously a nice little factor of 100. Let's have a look at something like 5/8. So, looking at 5/8, we're just going to do the same thing. Times 100 over 1 equals 500 over 8, which is the same as saying 500 divided by 8. 8 into 5 I can't do, so 8 into 50 goes 6 times. And here I know that 6 times 8 is 48, so I'm going to put my little 2 over here. So 8 into 20 goes 2 times, remainder 4. So we put our little decimal here and we put our little decimal here because I need something to give my little remainder 4 to. And 8 into 40, oh, excellent, goes 5 times. So 5/8 is actually 62.5%, because I can have percentages that are decimals. So I can have decimal percentages. So things like interest rates are decimal percentages. And it really does, this part here, really does matter when you're borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So something like an interest rate of 4.37, I'm not going to choose that if I can get one that's 4.12. So now we're going to have a quick little look at decimals to percent. They're super easy, obviously. This is where thinking about money is super handy. So we are doing the exact same thing as we did with fractions. I can already see that that's 36 over 100. So I can already just see that that equals 36%. But essentially what I'm doing is multiplying it by 100. I'm just moving the decimal point, boom, boom, just like that. Multiplying it by 100. Excellent. Let's try doing this one. We'll just go 4.32 times 100. So to do that, I just move my decimal point 2 places and I get 432%. Now I'm going to kick it back and go, does that seem right? 432% seems like a weird percent. But if I go back to my original number, 4 and 32 hundredths, so 4 and 32 hundredths, and I can obviously simplify that. But if I have a look at 4 and 32 hundredths, yeah, it needs to be more than 100%. It's 4. So $4.32, 400. Yeah, when I look at that, I go, that's pretty cool. I think I'm right. So my brain tells me I'm right even before, well, it's not that, I can rationalize that I'm right. It's that step that I'm tell you about all the time, where you've got to evaluate your answer to see that it's logical. That's what I meant to say. My brain tells me that that is logical. And again, just a quick little reminder. Let's check. 0.36 times 100. Yep, 36%. And this one was 4.32 times 100. Yep, 432%. Excellent. All right. Expressing decimals to percentages, fractions to percentages, and obviously when we get percentages back to decimals and fractions, it's working in the opposite direction. So I'm going to be dividing by 100. Let's have a quick little check. I'm going to leave this one up here so that we can see, and I'm going to turn that, back into a decimal. So if I times that by 100, I'm going to need to divide this by 100. So 36 divided by 100, I know that all I need to do here is, there's a decimal, move it back this way. 0.36. So decimal 2%, I'm multiplying, moving this way. Percent to decimal, I'm going to this way, divide. Let's have a look if I can do it here. So if I want to 432% divided by 100, here's my decimal, I'm going to move it back 2 places, equals 4.32. Check, it works in reverse. Excellent. Tune in for part 2, which is working out how to express an amount as a percent of another amount and finding a percent of a total. Cool.